Here we are. I'm going to share my screen so that we can have Maria and Roy join us as well. This, share. Moment. And there we are. Okay, so Maria and Roy, do you both just want to say, I'm just turning up volume here. Do you both want to just say hello real quick, just so I can make sure the volume's working there?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Great. Well, we're going to jump right in here with our discussion questions, and I'll continue to work on my screen so we expand it a little bit here. But I first just thought, I did a little bit of greetings to say hello to all of you, but I would love to just kind of jump into some of these questions to talk about the work that you're leading and what you're doing. And so, Karen, let's just start with you.
Hi, good morning, Kelly. Good morning, everyone. I am the Executive Superintendent for Brooklyn North, representing 7 community districts and 108,000 students. I am responsible for leading the borough office that provides cross-functional supports to the schools in each district, along with the superintendents and teams who supervise the 231 schools. I am excited to be leading in Brooklyn North at this time. And we have successfully shepherded our schools through remote learning. And now we are in the summer school session and looking forward to the 2021 school year.
Great. David, do you want to just jump over to your role?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for this opportunity. My name is David LaFargue. I'm the Louisiana STEM or LaSTEM program administrator for the state of Louisiana, operated out of the Louisiana Board of Regents. I'm responsible for the oversight of creating a infrastructure and STEM centers across the state, which we're in the process, and I'll get into some of this a little bit later. And this is a coordinated effort to kind of bring some collaboration and partnerships and kind of one voice for the state through the different regions across our state to try to motivate and put a lot of emphasis on growing the interest for STEM areas, especially in the sense for minorities, for females, for the underrepresented, those populations across our state. That's pretty much my primary role, and I'm also, it appears that due to some legislation that was passed recently, also they'll have the cybersecurity portion for the state of Louisiana that will be functioning in our area as well.
That's great. All right, Roy, let's turn it over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. I was supposed to be on a panel on Monday and just had some technical difficulties. And thanks to Kelly, I'm here ready to share what I'm here for in regards to STEM. So I have this little sheet that shows you STEM music. Basically, I am a aerospace engineer, structural design engineer, designing aircraft parts. So that's what I do for a living. But I started something last year called STEM music, and it is all about inspiring the next generation of multicultural STEM professionals to engage in music and entertaining music. And so it's been a true passion. I'm also a local independent gospel artist, and so we're kind of merging those two together. And just really seeing the need to really have diversity within the STEM workforce. Being a Black, Puerto Rican, and Mexican aerospace engineer going to work every day, seeing that disparity just within my own office really lit the fire in me to want to do this. And so I have a blast prior to COVID, touring elementary schools and the target audience being third graders, really just trying to start at the bottom portion of our pipeline in STEM, trying to get Black, brown students interested in STEM and hopefully build more of our STEM workforce to be more diverse. So that's what I'm here for, and I'm excited to be on the panel with you all today.
Great, thank you. And Maria, So Maria Spina from PSEG.
Good morning, everyone. Very excited to be here as well. This is an opportunity for being part of the panel and share all the information along with colleagues. So I manage PSEG Foundation's education, workforce development, and clean earth portfolio. I cultivate and develop relationships on behalf of the foundation so that our fund making is very strategic. I also participate in thought leadership, connecting cross-functional teams to effectively develop programs, serve as a mentor, and encourage employee volunteerism. We strongly believe in the importance of employee volunteerism, not only for the benefit of our employees as a tool for engagement, but also as a means for connecting with the community, and specifically in the space of education, providing that as serving as mentors and really strategic and opportunities for young people. Our ultimate goal is to ensure that our grant making is strategic and we will have a positive impact on the communities we serve, always through the lens of providing equity and access for all.
Well, thank you for that. And I feel, I'm very humbled by the panelists that we have here because you all are doing amazing work. One of the questions that I just want to start right off the bat with talking about, I don't like the word new normal because I don't want it to be normal. It's this whole model that we're going through, and I feel like it's a point in time. I'd love for you to share about what are you doing? How are you involved in this? Because it's not just about the COVID-19. It's so much more, right? We've had COVID-19. We've also been dealing with this whole issue of racism and all of these things. And I know in all of your positions, you are seeing this in a whole bunch of different ways. So I just love for you to talk about what you're doing. How is this, and especially Karen with you and this whole, we don't know what the fall is going to look like. David, you're going to be in the same situation there too. But I just, would love for you to share your thoughts on all of this. And I'm going to start with, Karen, go ahead, start with you there.
Okay. So for us, all of the employees of the Brooklyn North, New York City Department of Education Borough Office and Superintendent offices, as well as all of the schools and students transitioned to remote work and teaching and learning by March 20th. As you know, New York City was the epicenter of the virus in the United States at that time. So the focus at that time was foremost on the health and safety of employees and families and students and their parents and all family members and community members. Teachers were able to successfully transition all of their lessons online within a week and were ready to provide work for students as they settled into the new way of learning online. And as the teachers and students became more comfortable with online learning and using video conferencing tools, our teachers began offering more live instructional opportunities for our students, including social emotional supports, which were so needed at the time. Then the New York City Department of Education ensured that all students had access to online so that they could continue learning by providing internet-ready laptops to all of the students who needed them. And schools also provided devices from their collection. And what was great, there were internet providers in the city that waived Wi-Fi fees so that students could access and continue to learn. As well, we created rec centers, regional enrichment centers in each district so that we could provide safe childcare for the children of essential workers and classrooms where they could access lessons from their teachers remotely. We also offered 3 meals daily to all students who needed them, as well to all of their family members and members of the community as needed. We ended the school year strong, where all students received final grades that represented whether students met standards, needed improvement, or still had to complete courses. Students are now enrolled in remote summer school to continue learning in preparation for the 2021 school year. The pandemic also surfaced many inequities that existed within our communities, from being some communities being more adversely and disproportionately affected by the virus, to food and housing insecurity. This, of course, was compounded with the death of George Floyd and protests and social unrest that resulted. In our schools, communities, and offices, we began having conversations about race, and as a result, there are calls to change policies, such as ensuring that African American history is accurately taught in our schools in our current history curriculum, or as standard emphasis. So the work continues as we plan for the 2021 school year with all of the unknowns, but everyone is putting forth best effort to ensure that we do what is best for all of our students, and our students can continue to have access to high quality instruction throughout the crises that we are facing.
Thank you for Karen, and I really do. I applaud your leadership. I love hearing what you're doing, and I think, New York City is a great example as a whole and what the Department of Education there is doing. So thank you for that. I wanted to stick on that education side. So David, I'm going to stick with you, and then Maria and Roy, I want to, bring this back to kind of your position in terms of what you're doing, because you're kind of supporting this on the education side. So David, let's first go to you in terms of the COVID and all of the other issues that are going on.
So Kelly, you may recall whenever we had originally talked, this position that I actually operate right now was created out of the legislation during 2017, Act 392, authored by Senator Hewitt. And this was part of legislation that was passed to create this effort to try to organize Louisiana's four main areas, which is our pre-K to 12, our higher education, workforce, and community. How do we bring everybody together to raise awareness in STEM? And how do we create programs that, what we noticed was there's a lot of areas across our state that are much more advanced, and they have a lot of resources and they're doing great things. But there's a bunch of other areas across the state that if they just had the same information and in some instances resources, they would be excelling as well. So they were done in little silos, and the idea is to bring everybody together and share resources, share support. But in regards to how a lot of the stuff that Karen was saying for the state of Louisiana, and I don't speak as a as the primary role in regards to pre-K to 12. My background tends to be more higher education. However, my wife is a pre-K to 12 principal, so I hear a lot of things in regards to that for our state, and we work a lot with Louisiana Department of Education. But we kind of did a lot of similar things what Karen mentioned in regards to the state and how we wrapped up a lot of higher ed, rolled over primarily to online in regards to the majority of where they could. There were some kind of like more technical post-secondary education programs that they had to have, physical contact with certain things. And they identified that and tried to isolate those. The pre-K to 12, they were able to primarily kind of transition over and do online components and wrap up, kind of as Karen mentioned, for their state. But one of the things that I think is going to be a big challenge is for fall 2020 as kids begin to start. And I think it's not going to be we have plans in post-secondary, but there's also plans in the pre-K to 12 that I think the primary secondary that it's going to be a bit of a challenge. For example, we've been going through this over the past few weeks with my wife and different board members and things like that. If a student comes in and you check their temperature, and then let's say midday they actually do run a fever and they did have COVID, and then it impacted half the class, what do you do with those kids that were impacted? What do you do with the teacher? What do you do with the school bus driver? There's all these different types of scenarios. If they're quarantined, for how long? Then there's a lot of different things that you have to really be able to think through. And that's the challenge that's right now. It does seem like there may be quite a few, if not a vast majority throughout our state, that will push back their start dates to try to be able to identify how they're going to approach this. But not only that, to be able to have enough time to get the PPE for the students, the teachers, everybody at the schools, but also the equipment that, the tons of Chromebooks were ordered, and a lot of them are on back order, and there's different things that happened across the state. So there's a lot of things that it impacted. But in regards to the Louisiana STEM or the LaSTEM that I oversee, it kind of created a morphing into, we were trying to bring everybody together to have coordinated efforts across the state into an economic restarter. Which is, and it kind of ties right into the CARES Act, and everything is, how do we identify all the needs across? We're basically going to be taking on another look at all the different regions, and we do know what it was prior to COVID in regards to the different needs, but COVID actually impacted some of the main things that are going to be needed throughout our state in certain regions, and more, the rural or the urban areas. It's going to be different, and that's why we're in the process of our infrastructure that we're setting up right now. We were recently awarded the money that we asked for during a special session, thanks to all those who supported that. So that's really great for the state of Louisiana, and going throughout this year, you'll begin to see this network beginning to form in Louisiana. We have also tried to communicate on a national level to tie in with the 5-year STEM strategic plan through the White House. And that's one of the things that we're definitely doing. And one last thing I'll say, the impacts of COVID. My research is, as part of my doctoral program, it was in regard to how students learn in STEM programs using different types of technology. It was augmented virtual reality, et cetera. But one of the things I want to focus on is the fact that part of my research, caused me to explore how people accept technology. And I believe, in my personal opinion, this is David's personal opinion, I believe that the pandemic actually created an acceptance of technology that would not have been there, that probably elevated us 7-8 years into the future in regards to how kids learn, but not only that, but also how employers accept some of this work taking place remotely across the state, across the nation. They don't actually have to physically be there. That's a lot of things that I believe is a benefit. Obviously, there was a lot of cons that happened during this pandemic, but I believe there are some things that people are more willing to accept now due to the COVID pandemic.
Great. Thank you for that. I mean, it's amazing work to hear, at a New York City level than at a state level there. I want to switch this over because, Maria, PSEG, you've really jumped in, not just with the COVID, but also helping with this other pandemic that we have right now around race here going on. I'd love for you to share in terms of what PSEG is doing, and also thinking about, what are some of the things that you can challenge us to do and others to do.
Thanks, Kelli. I have to say, from the very beginning, we were really in tune in terms of what was happening in the community. We always are. We're a corporation with regards to our workforce, and also within our corporate citizenship team and government affairs, that really has our ear to the ground, listening to the community needs. And so with that, we were able to put together a really nice, robust plan that included a $2.5 million commitment in response to the pandemic, which had a whole host of different pieces to it, but essentially providing support to the healthcare community with PPE equipment, vulnerable age population and socioeconomic gaps facing food insecurity, displaced workers, challenges with many other critical things. In terms of on the education side, we also ran an RFP for small grants, which also included those components. But in terms of the education side, we saw a host of different things, ranging from the student emergency funds at the university level and community colleges. We also received funding requests for a host of different things, from food distribution to some of the YMCAs and Boys and Girls Clubs that provide support to the school districts, because that seemed to be a big challenge with the school districts when things really started to implode in April and May. And of course, the technology challenges that many of the schools face. That was another big area where we were able to lend support. And of course, as things progressed, in light of the George Floyd incident, We also came together as a corporation and within our corporate citizenship team, making another commitment to support organizations that address the racial injustice, equality, and human rights of communities of color. This is something we feel very strongly about in the importance of equality and equity as a necessity, and that access to, in terms of education, quality education is a basic human right and imperative for all. So all of this is ongoing. We were able to pivot in terms of some of our programs to really focus on some of these critical needs that are happening within our area.
Thank you for that, Maria. And I also want to thank, PSEG for everything that you're doing. Roy, you have a different perspective in all of this, right? One, in your role, but two, in terms of your work that you're doing. Why don't you talk to us? I mean, first of all, I think you're a total inspiration. I mean, I loved meeting you and hearing your story. So how are you using that in this time, and what are you doing right now with all of this?
Yeah, sure. No, thank you once again for having me. Wow, it has been quite a journey personally for myself, but also for STEM Music. Obviously, as I was saying prior to COVID, I think we still had 5 dates on the calendar for the schools. I'm in Wichita, Kansas, for everybody on the panel who's watching. And so I partnered with an organization called Arts Partners and the Wichita Public Schools. And so I was doing concerts, and these concerts are full of teaching kids about STEM with the songs. So it's like 5 songs and then STEM activities in between. They have to earn every letter of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And then at the end, they get wristbands, and it's a whole thing. And so once everything all shut down for COVID, I was just thinking, what can we do? Because in COVID, there's a lot of fear going on, there's a lot of stress, a lot of frustration, a lot of pain, people having lost. And so I said, we got to pivot, just like much of you all had to pivot. And so we ended up doing a 6-week-long virtual STEM Music show on Facebook Live and Instagram Live. And it was so great because there were students from all over tuning in. And so I would do prize giveaways at the end of the show. We talk about the STEM word of the week. We have Spanish, because I'm half Latino. We have Spanish word of the week, and do different STEM activities. And it was really great to see students have this fun, virtually via Facebook and Instagram. Many people, maybe not everybody has that, but many of the students in this country are able to access Facebook and Instagram. And so that was really great to get that feedback. And then moving on from that, I was able to partner with the USA Science and Engineering Festival, and I was kind of summoned to write some songs for their virtual festival that they had. And so that was a great experience too, just being able to kind of music connect with them and is able to provide a joy and a sense of peace and calm even in the midst of all the chaos. And it's been my privilege during this time to be able to provide that with music that's all about STEM. And then the last thing that STEM Music has been able to do is through our partnership with Arts Partners, we were able to do some taping at the local KPTS PBS affiliate. And so we have little STEM segments that are being aired on the local television station for KPTS PBS Kids. And it's just been really cool to use this gift and to use what this company is all about to inspire the next generation of professionals. And so then we go to the racial side of things. And I think, the big part and point of the organization, companies, and music is to inspire the next generation of multiple Black and brown STEM professionals, and really just trying to show students of color that if they want to be in STEM, they should be in STEM, they belong in STEM. And I think one of the big things that we'll be doing moving forward is, one, we'll be offering virtual lessons in STEM music concerts. We already did one with the University of Kansas about 2 weeks ago. It was really great. We did a STEM activity all about skyscrapers. We talked about civil engineering. And then also I wrote a song, and the students helped me finish the song, and that was great. But we will be highlighting Black and Latino and multicultural engineers and inventors. And a lot of times that's regulated to Black History Month. But I think it's so important to make sure that our young students know that these giants of STEM exist, and a lot of times are not highlighted. So when you think about George Floyd, and when you think about the things that have kind of come to light in our country, I think for me and for STEM Music, the company, is to try and focus on that, those discrepancies within the STEM world. When you think about AI, and all the things that are happening within technology, who's behind coding this technology? Is it going to be coded to recognize Black and brown faces or target them? These are things that we have to think about moving forward. And then lastly, what I'll also too, when I think about racial injustice, just being that I've worked in corporate America for 5 years in the STEM engineering world, just making sure that the leadership and the representation within that leadership, making sure that we need to grow that. And so STEM Music is going to be a big part of that moving forward, with the content that we create, with the rooms that we're able to be in, the tables we're able to sit at, just to make sure we're holding our corporate partners and everyone accountable to make sure that we can't just have we're going to celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day and then that's it. No, we really have to change the leadership, make sure that representation is from the top down. And I think those are the ways that we'll be able to address some of these racial issues moving forward.
Well, thank you for that. And I'm going to give a little bit of a plug to say, one of the things I was most disappointed about not being in Florida, Roy, was I really wanted to hear you sing. So I'm going to give a plug for next summer, because you know what, we're going to be back together in Florida. I'm praying that this will happen, and you will definitely be there, and we'll get to enjoy that STEM music there as well. And I think that, and I think, Karen, this fits really nicely into, you have done an amazing job across Brooklyn North with integrated STEM, and I've had this honor and privilege to be at many of the events and things that you've been doing and creating these STEM champions. Could you talk about why is integrated STEM so important?
Well, Kelly, as you know, we have what we call the E-STEM vision in Brooklyn North, and the purpose of that is to increase representation of minorities in the STEM fields. And so we want to ensure that we start that work, PreK, through the 12th grade, so our students are ready to enter higher education and to major in tech majors in college, and then to go on to participate in the tech workforce. And so to David's point about the acceleration, Kelly, you were a member of our E-STEM committee, and our vision was out 10 years to 2030. But what happened in March 2020 was that vision was sort of accelerated, right? And so I was very pleased with the work that happened in Brooklyn North for the 1920 school year. As you know, we did have the iSTEM Day on September 18th as a kickoff to our year of STEM events. And I was very thankful to have you and Sal participate. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. But there are many aspects of the blended learning work that's currently happening in the DOE that were always a part of the E-STEM vision for Brooklyn North, where the T really represented the work that we were doing with our teachers, led by a STEM champion in each of our schools, to use technology tools for teaching and learning. And that is what has happened during remote learning, and it's now continuing into our focus on blended learning. The E, before E-STEM, spoke to the equity work, right? It's critical that our young people are exposed to STEM education, strong science education, strong math education, and then the integration of engineering and design thinking into the work. And for us, the E also represented entrepreneurship and career and technical education. We really believe in the power of ensuring that we have the I-STEM approach, and that it really comes out in project-based learning across all of our schools. Students are spending more time in science labs, in designing solutions for the future, in hydroponic farms, in robotics and drones and aeronautics and so on. And, you know, even on the STEM day that you attended on September 18th, a great day was had by all, and our students were even able to build robotic transportation to Mars at our own very own Transit Technical High School in Brooklyn North. This work has continued seamlessly during remote learning. I recently attended a remote city council meeting in Lake Como, New Jersey, a real meeting where the students from Williamsburg School for Architecture and Design redesigned the area around the lake and presented their designs to the city council. The students were very professional and the council very impressed, and the council will be implementing aspects of their design. That is what project-based learning looks like. Students working on real-life projects, using their knowledge of science, of math, of engineering and technology to deliver a solution for the community, and having this happen even during remote learning. That's the power of integrated STEM. I also recently attended a celebration of app inventions and coding done at the Williamsburg School for Art and Technology, as well as STEM Week in District 90, which was 100% remote, with students designing PPEs, drones, and other inventions. The learning environment is forever changed, with our students bringing it into the 21st century.
Thank you. That was great. I'm like applauding there. So, you know, kudos, nothing less there. Maria, I want to just go over to you to say from you know, the PSEG perspective, why is integrated STEM so important?
Sure, Kelly. Integrated STEM is so important because it helps to advance student learning. Not only does it provide access to quality education, but it encourages the implementation of systems learning level education and workforce development strategies. Having an integrated STEM strategy allows for streamlining programs, helps to build a diverse and inclusive talent pipeline, and addresses the gaps in workforce requirements. Some of the programs that we support through our foundation really allow for students to engage with our workforce. Earlier this year, for example, we made an announcement in a partnership with Central High School in Newark, which is an academy-based a school focused on an academy-style program within environmental studies. And so we're helping the school develop curriculum and what that will look like in the fall for students. We've also made a commitment to allow our workforce to serve as mentors, provide industry expertise to the students, and even offer that hands-on learning experience by coming to some of our facilities and participating in site visits. Hopefully, once social distancing is something of the past, that'll something we can resume. But we believe it's so important that students get that first-hand opportunity to learn. As I mentioned earlier, that we strongly believe in volunteerism, not only in the perspective of that engagement from employees, but it just allows for students to hear about how they can build their own career path, what may be of interest to them, what may be the important curriculum or courses to take if they want to pursue a specific career. Recognizing that not every student is college bound, and maybe students, especially in our workforce, where we've got such a majority of skill-based employees, where students can really get the perspective and understanding what do they need to follow within their own school time in developing their own career path, and also learning that career paths are not always a straight line. You have to take different paths to get where you ultimately want to be, and even when you get to where you think you want to be, you've got to go to a different route. So we strongly believe that engagement is a critical piece in partnerships in integrated STEM, not just about funding specific initiatives, but it's also about that collaboration. Another partner that we're very strong with is called Students in Science, which is based in Newark. We were able to provide some state funding, and what they do is have a science lab for students where they can learn hands-on experiences. That's another way that we can really engage our workforce to volunteer, commit to engaging with students, really having students connect and learn that they can see our employees as role models for future career opportunities.
Thank you. And I think, PSEG is one of the leaders across the country in terms of really creating those pathways and creating those opportunities and truly thinking about all students. So I applaud the work that you're doing. So thank you for that. I want to hop over to David so you can talk about the state level of, why is it important to have integrated STEM? And then I'm going to end up with you there, Roy. So David, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm going to try to be quick on this. So obviously, it's hugely important for all the reasons that were previously stated, but also in regards to the economy, especially as Louisiana stands, and primarily, this tends to be a lot across the nation. But in regards to the high-skilled, high-demand, 4-star, 5-star jobs in Louisiana, there's obviously as we move forward, it's projected that it continues to grow. The thing is, as we talk about all this, I think one thing that's really important, and this is part of our whole creating our infrastructure across our state, is not only talking about STEM, but there's a huge part of raising the awareness and the understanding of what STEM is, especially what we've observed over time, and a lot of whenever we talk about our community-based efforts and things like that, a lot of times helping parents to understand what actually STEM is and what the opportunities are and the future opportunities, because parents tend to urge their kids to go in a certain direction. And so if you can bring the parents, maybe that are not in STEM, employment fields or whatever, if you can bring their awareness and their understanding, and that's what's I believe is really great about a lot of these community programs, that it's not just a summer camp where a kid comes or something of that nature. It's the kid comes with their guardian or their parent, and that is hugely important to not only as you're focusing on the kid, you're also bringing awareness and understanding to the parents, which is huge to be able to continue to meet the demand that's going to be on the horizon for STEM programs. And I'll say this one last thing too. As part of our effort, we are in the process of identifying regional STEM network centers. So there's various entities across our state. We got 9 regions at this time that we are creating this infrastructure. This is phase 1. So we believe this is so important that we're creating an entire infrastructure and funding it across our state. There are other states that are doing this, and we try to piggyback and kind of pick different states on what they're doing. No state is going to look exactly the same, but especially how the things are set up within the infrastructure, who reports to what, where things are housed at. That's a lot of things. But we created the Louisiana model, and we have recently received applications from entities all across the state. We're in the process right now of evaluating those, and we will be identifying the ones who were awarded during the month of August, and we will be implementing them and setting them up with a regional STEM director at that regional STEM network center across our state, and it's going to be a hugely collaborative, high communication, intensive type of network. So that's the phase 1 of setting up the network. The phase 2 for Louisiana, which is going to be towards the end of this year, going into next year, is going to be identifying, where there needs to be programs, representing equity, representing certain groups being coming to the table, being aware. That's part of our phase 2. That's identify the need, identify the issues. Now let's find the resources, connect the dots, and we're going to do it on a statewide level, so it'll have a lot more influence and a lot more power whenever we're seeking out resources or support or different things like that.
Thank you. And I think, my big takeaway just from what we've heard so far is that I love hearing it from what's happening in an urban environment there, what's happening at a state level, and an excellent model there as well. Hearing about it from the business angle coming together there. And so now, Roy, I'm going to turn it over to you, because both on a personal and professional level, why is integrated STEM so important?
trying to get to the mute button again. No, thank you. And by the way, just everybody on the panel, I'm so inspired. Like, this is just pumping me up so to just be excited about the future of STEM and to have people, just colleagues like you all who are just doing such incredible work. So I just thank you, like, for real. That is amazing. It's very important for me in regards to having integrated STEM. I love the project approach. I love hearing that because I do think it is very much about having that hands-on experience, not just about the word or the acronym, but teaching people, as David was saying, growing the awareness of what that means for parents. And so, I think it's extremely important because, and especially with STEM music, we're integrating STEM with music. And I think that's so powerful because it's a language that, for my focus, I'm really focusing on K through 8. And so it's a language that everyone can understand, but specifically for our youth, that they can really connect to. And so when we're having songs and we're talking about, for instance, when I was working with the University of Kansas in their TRIO program via virtual Zoom, we're talking about skyscrapers and what all goes into building and designing those things. We did a hands-on activity where we had to design our own skyscraper. They had materials shipped out to them. But then we built a song together. And in the song, some of the key words were like piles. Piles are what are placed, driven down into the ground to the bedrock, which is the foundation of what the skyscraper stands on. And so these are things that they're learning about, but also having to fit into a song lyrically. And so at the end, we did the song all together. And so it was just awesome to see that integration of not just the hands-on activity, but also with the music. And so then you have this song that they can play over and over again that just reinforces what that project was about, what the terms that we learned in that project was about, the job that correlates to that, which is civil engineering and architecture. And then another big thing with STEM music too in regards to integrated STEM and creating the awareness of that is we created the STEM music podcast. And so we're highlighting multicultural STEM professionals and the music they love. And so even though K through 8 students might not be listening to that at this age, as they grow older, should they want to be able to pursue these careers, they have roadmaps now. Somebody says, hey, I want to be an electrical engineer. There's a podcast about that of somebody who is an electrical engineer who tells their journey all the way from being a young child when they first learned about STEM and got interested into it to what they're doing professionally right now. And then at the end, we talk about, the music that they love, which is always fun. But I think it's extremely important to have it integrated with parents, with hands-on activities, and just the representation of Black and Brown individuals within the STEM world, and also how that integrates with our economical advantages in regards to the Black and Brown communities. That's something that we don't really think about too, and that's the integration of STEM. For instance, and this will be the last thing. I know I talk a lot, but my personal experience, growing up as a Black Latino kid, being interested in airplanes, that's how I got into STEM as an aerospace engineer. I love airplanes, and so having the support to do that. But it was life changing. Once I became the engineer, if we get a bonus or whatever, I'm able to send that money back to my parents or to my family members. And so that's another integrated part of the STEM experience that I think we can highlight to our multicultural kids, and just letting them know that there's so much opportunity. Problem solving is the root of STEM, and I think that's just a great life skill to have in general. So I'm all for the integration within STEM.
Well, our time is up, but I'm just going to leave this with the audience here, is that these 4 individuals, if you don't know them, reach out to them, because the work that they are doing is amazing and you need to see it. And they are some of the most leading innovators across, the country and around the world that are doing some really incredible work. So I just want to thank you all. I want to thank you for, being flexible here, and to the participants to be flexible. We're problem solving behind the scenes to make things work, but it's an honor and a privilege as always to be with you. And I want you all to stay tuned next year in Florida, because we have a lot more to discuss. So I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks
all right. Invite. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.